Hi, I'm Laurie. I make metal things and I have quite a good time making them. I used to be a metalwork and woodwork teacher, technology teacher for about 30 years, encouraging kids to develop their own ideas and make their own things. And in all that time I used to make my own pieces. They were usually more craft items and stuff, but of late I've started doing a lot more sculptural pieces and being content with my ideas. When I think about it, I think as a teacher, telling kids to trust their own, believe in themselves, trust their own ideas, do their own thing, and now I'm doing it myself, so it's good. I'm not a hypocrite. I have a good time. I have a big pile of rusty metal junk. I live out here in Jindivick. We have a sculpture garden now, which is basically all of the pieces that I just keep making, and some of them some people buy them. And it's a very pleasant life. I've got 2 acres and surrounded by lovely green rolling hills. I work all day in my shed, usually, except for the odd nap. As a kid, I was an only child, and we never had lots of money, but we also, you made your own fun and used all sorts of odd bits and pieces to make boy guns and cubby houses and things. I've always been I suppose it's a scrounger. I love sort of finding things which once had worth and sort of trying to use them in some form or another to give them worth again. I love the fact that I use recycled metal, I suppose you want to call it. I would call it. Example, I've just made a lovely flower thing out of an old harrow, and the harrow was done by somebody, over 100 years ago, and he's blacksmithed it, and he's forged it, and he's formed it. Done an absolutely magnificent job, but of course it's old, it's broken, it's battered, it's not usable anymore, etc. So I've made it into a cactus flower. And I like the fact that I'm sort of honouring that original artist or craftsman by not taking away so much of the shape that it sort of is invisible anymore. So that although I've taken the actual mesh sort of part of the harrow apart, it still has the tines, the spikes sort of sticking out, and the arms that held it. So you can see the original harrow. And the same with all of the pieces that I have. It's very rarely do I actually go down to complete unrecognisable junk. I really like to be able to sort of say, oh yes, that's an old piece of an old tool, that's an old spanner, that's an old piece of a plant rack or something. And it's interesting because the forms themselves take on a new life. It's instead of looking at them as part of a plant rack, you're just looking at them as a pattern, as a form within the atmosphere, within nature. And again, against a simple background, they just look, well, to me, they just look stunning. I have started to use colour with my pieces, and it's an interesting thing because I haven't used colour much in my life. I've only drawn with pencil and biro and things, and I've liked that, and it's black and white. But I must admit, certainly with the pieces out in the sculpture garden, a little bit of colour gives them a whole identity. It basically says, hey, come over here and have a look at me. And I've also started using rocks. And again, I love rocks. Rocks are really interesting things. And it's to be able to use rocks, which again, are unvalued. Nobody values rocks other than maybe making a rock wall, and to have them as part of my sculpture, that amuses me too. It's sort of a bit of a what's it called? Suggestion, back to Michelangelo and beautiful carved sculpture, but I'm not doing any carving. I'm just putting pieces of rock in between bits of mesh and having them there. I've got my flying rock there, and I think that's quite wonderful in its own way, and I like the way that basically just sits in the air in the same way that, dare I say, a 747 jetliner sits in the air I mean, that's basically a rock that's been refined. And again, you look at it and you think, how on earth can something like that actually fly? So my flying rock is yeah, well, sort of a reflection on that in some ways.